Hello everyone, this is Powell Ponder on Weather. In this update, we're going to be talking about the potential for subtropical storm Ana as well as the rest of the tropics. So before we do get started, if you do like weather related content, please subscribe to my channel as I will upload daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm. So let's get right to it. Here's the broad picture of what's happening over the U.S. and the Caribbean as well as the tropical Atlantic. You can definitely see we've got a high pressure system over here dominating the east. We've got this little cold front that came out into the Caribbean. That is more or less a stalled front on the outskirts of this high pressure. And out of the tail of this, we've actually got a non-tropical low that's actually forming near Bermuda. And we'll go over the NHC guidance on this. But man, it's already got a 90% chance of development over just the next 48 hours. You can see a lot of development out here in the eastern Pacific. That gives you an indication that we have transitioned to more of an ENSO neutral, and that is adding fuel to the fire once these systems come across and taps into that tropical moisture into the Gulf. And you can see the alignment where they've just been inundated with some very heavy rains in and around the Houston area, in and around Louisiana area. And these heavy rains will backtail, fishtail off the cold front here into the Caribbean, going over Cuba as well as Jamaica, getting into the Cayman Islands and the Yucatan. So if we zoom in to the overall picture, here's that feature. They've already got a 90% chance. So the official hurricane season doesn't actually start until June the 1st, but they elected this year to go ahead and start issuing advisories by the middle of May. And it's a good thing they've done because, man, that we've already got what's looked to be probably sometime tomorrow, our first subtropical storm of the season. Now, this actually happened, several times before. If we take you back all the way back to 2015, we actually had a subtropical storm, Ana. It gets regenerated every 6 years. And we also had Arlene back in 2006-17. These are early storms development before the season actually started. We had Alberto back in 2018, as well as Andrea back in 2019. So it's fairly somewhat common. That's why the National Hurricane Center went ahead and elected to do these advisories ahead of time because of this potentially happening. And it looks like it's probably going to happen. We have a non-tropical low pressure system is located about 800 miles east of Bermuda. The low is expected to develop into gale force winds later today when it moves generally northward. The low is then forecasted to move westward and then southwestward over warmer waters tonight and then into Friday. And it will likely become a subtropical storm cyclone near and northeast of Bermuda on Friday. The system is then expected to move to the north and the northeast in a more hostile environment by late Sunday into Monday. So it definitely looks like Bermuda won't take a direct impact from this storm, but they are going to be feeling the effects for some showers and some storms going into the day tomorrow at Friday, as well as Saturday before it more or less skirts out to sea. So if this actually has an invest on it, this is our first invest of the season. This is officially AL 90, invest 90. And yeah, you can definitely see with the model guidance here, it brings it a little bit southward towards Bermuda about for a day or so, gets near, bringing some showers into Friday, into Saturday, but then it will quickly race off into the northeast, into out in the open sea. But it definitely appears that this will be our official first named storm of the season. Is more than likely it'll be named probably sometime tomorrow, if not sooner. So I'm fully expecting with a 90% chance. So if we zoom out and look at the big picture, there's your high pressure. And it's been dominating the east. That is more or less your sinking air. It's hard to rain in sinking air, and you got to have that upward rising motion, but that's actually, feeding this trough here and out here into the Four Corners regions that's just been parked over there all week long, sending waves of rain. There's your cold front that stalled out here in the Caribbean and the North Atlantic. And on the tail, that's where we find our subtropical system that is forming. And then down below, we've got that monsoon trough that's elongating into Central America here. That's bringing about a 20% chance of this low pressure system possibly forming as it skirts off to into the west. So if we zoom in, look at the probability guidance of this actually forming from the latest EPS guidance from the European model, and yeah, pretty much bullseye. 90% chance over the next 48 hours of this actually becoming a subtropical storm Ana. And then down below, yeah, there's where that monsoon trough is elongated here in Central America. These storms will have a slight potential. It's about a 20 or 30% chance of it continue moving across, but these won't have any impact to land whatsoever, if it actually does form and move off into the west. So if we take a look going forward, we always look at one of these indications of where the rising air might be, where the sinking air might be. If we look at the forward-looking EPS control guidance of the vertical velocity index, here's essentially where we live here in the North America. You can definitely see where the red's here. That is your sinking air. That's going to be almost impossible for something to form. But yeah, you can definitely see there's the 21st. There's that little green area. That's an indication where we do have that little subtle upward rising motion air, and that's kind of gives you a small window of this potentially forming out in this zone. You can definitely see by the first week in June, we have some sinking air come back in the picture. But look at here, this is the standout. By the time we get into the middle of June, for those 10 days there's a good probability, at least this is one element that we look at, of a lot of upward rising motion air in and around the Caribbean and the North Atlantic. So that's something to kind of keep an eye on in that particular time frame to maybe look for some sort of tropical development, possibly going forward. But yeah, the season is early. It's just kind of getting started. This doesn't actually officially start in June 1st, but we always look for indications of something to develop. And I am expecting a very active season. My guidance going forward, at least a month or two ago, was 18 to 22 named storms this season. I think that's it's not. I don't expect it to be nearly as active as last year. And then probably not as active as 2005, but somewhere right in line of one of your top 5 most active years on record. So I'm definitely expecting a pretty active, very active season in North Atlantic. Now let's zoom in, look at over the next several days, and you can definitely see the setup. Here's the setup later on this afternoon. There's that sinking air over the eastern coast of the United States. It's going to be very difficult to rain in that environment. There's that trough. That's going to be an indication of our subtropical storm forming. And along that boundary, there's that cold front that's stalling. So you're talking subtle into the Bahamas, going into Cuba, going into the Dominican Republic. There's Jamaica. We'll start feeling the impacts from this light to moderate, some heavier rains at times, going into the Bahamas. And there's portions of the Yucatan, and this stream of Gulf moisture will start feeding into, places into Louisiana again, into eastern Texas, where they just had devastating flooding all week long, and unfortunately, it continues for several more days in a lot of the areas that just do not need any more rainfall. If we look at going into Friday, the same setup. This ridge starts to feed back a little bit closer into back further west. That elongates this heavier rains portions of western Louisiana, more eastern Texas here. So from Beaumont to southern Louisiana, I mean, there's a pocket here that could pick up some extremely heavy rain. You can see the boundary here dipping a little bit further south, so it puts Bahamas out of the picture now and puts more of the Cuban, Cuba, more to the Dominican Republic, more Jamaica into play, more of the Cayman Islands, more of those heavier rain setups, getting into the Yucatan. So you got Cancun, you got Cozumel, you got all those areas that look to be having some heavier rains into Friday, as this moisture band will start feeding into the southern parts of the United States. And there's your, indications of probability of rainfall rates. I mean, this is a lot of moisture tapping into that system. And you can definitely see where the where the yellows are. That's a probability of going up to almost 2 inches per hour rainfall rate. And when you get into the reds here, that is above 2 inches. So this is a very soupy, tropical type environment that's going to feed into for the next several days. And you can see it gets pretty clocked over the Yucatan for Friday. So I'm expecting a pretty rainy day if you're in the Yucatan on Friday. And this will feed into Louisiana and southern portions of Louisiana and far eastern portions of Texas, where they're just going to bring, yes, more waves of heavy rain going to that area, just aggregating the flood problems. And that's why they've actually already extended the flood watches down in that region. If we zoom back into Saturday, this tropical low, starts to lose its luster a little bit as this ridge will continue to build in. Fortunately, that puts Louisiana out of play now, so they start to dry out. But that will just swing the heavier rains, swinging into portions of far eastern Texas again. That's probably going to be putting more or less in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, more in the play of those light to moderate showers, as that ridge will continue to shift the heavier rains back into the picture over there. There's that trough getting a little bit further south, putting more of Dominican Republic. Probably your heaviest rains over the next several days are going to be on Saturday into the island of Jamaica. This will fishtail into the Cayman Islands as well. And then especially the Yucatan again will be in that zone where that zonal flow of those heavier rains come into the day on Saturday. As we zoom into Sunday and look forward, it definitely starts to fade a little bit. It starts to push a little bit further south again. So these heavier rains will start, be more elongated into Jamaica, the more elongated southern portions of the Yucatan. It's definitely Louisiana out of play. It definitely starts to put or East Texas out of the play, and that owes those shifting of rains not nearly as heavy by then, for sure. You don't see the darker greens or anything like that. So these are just light to moderate, more or less daytime heating rain showers going to be popping up in that tropical type environment that this is going to be under still. But going into Sunday, as we go into Monday, it just loses it a little bit further. So we can almost somewhat say goodbye to this system as we start to push that ridge into more into Texas by then. And then this will fishtail even the rains further down to the south by then, pushing the rains further down to the south. And then it just continues onto the day on Tuesday, where, man, that ridge is going to be dominating a lot of these areas into the east. Could see their triple digits. I mean, that's some very warm air be coming in, sinking air over an extended period of time. You got to say, it hadn't rained in there in 7 days, hadn't rained in 10 days. And that's just a compounding effect of that area, and especially with the heat dome and sinking air, and that heats up quickly. So yeah, a lot of these places in the southeast will probably see triple digit temperatures coming on the day on Tuesday, as the rain finally subsides here in a lot of the areas of the Caribbean and much of the areas that are into the flood zone, and they can have a much needed break to dry out. So moving forward, here's your winds over the next 5 to 6 days. Not terribly too bad. A lot of these areas will pick up some 40-mile-per-hour gusts when you have some of those heavier storms moving in and around your area into portions of the Caymans, into Jamaica, but especially these heavier winds will stay more or less offshore. Just spokes of heavier winds just along the coast there, so not too bad. But yeah, you can definitely see the winds up here where that tropical low is going to be as it quickly races off. And we could have some gusts of 50, 60, 70 miles an hour is not out of the question by the time we get into Tuesday, with that storm racing off into the northeast. And there's your rainfall over the next 5 to 6 days. And there's that ridge that'll be that sinking air, not a drop to speak of in much of the southeast, where that boundary is, where that cold front is. We could be hit on the northern side, especially into the Dominican Republic, especially into Jamaica on the northern side, get into the Caymans, get into the Yucatan, especially with some heavier rain. But there's your bullseye going into East Texas, going into portions of the southern Louisiana, where they just don't need additional rainfall. And some of these digits could pick up 6 to 8 more inches in more isolated spots in far East Texas which they do not need any more rain in those areas. And then in East Texas, still could pick up another 2 to 3 inches from this system as it'll be moving across over the next 5 to 6 days. And as you get swinging more into Dallas, a little bit less amounts. You're talking maybe a ½ inch, maybe a ½ inch more to add to your totals. And then those higher amounts into far eastern parts of Oklahoma. So yeah, definitely that'll give you an idea. I am expecting that first subtropical storm of the season to form probably sometime later on the night or into the day on tomorrow. I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video. Definitely leave your comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you before